join me in the holding area as the cars are ready to go out for the 2B race in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. Two cars to watch out for. Charlie Rolls here, car 26, and Nick Ledoyen in car 60. They're not normally in the B grouping, they're quick drivers, so watch out for them. They're going to be looking to get through the pack in front of them and get their way up into the A race later on. With all of that, it's over to our commentary team to take you through this race to action.
Well, it's a damp track that welcomes the drivers this morning to this second race of the weekend for the B cars. And at the front of the grid, we have our 5 drivers that were relegated from our first A race. There were no retirements in that race. They did all get to the end, but they were at the back of the grid. At the front of this grid, then, we have Jack Lemmer, Brendan Abraham, Clive Chisnell, Charlie Rolls and Nick Ledoyen. Christian Dan finished 6th in the first B race. That's where he starts race number 2, ahead of Tom Jenkins and Bruce Robinson. Then Christopher Gimm and Luke Souch once again rounds out the top 10. Then it's Graham Rumsey and Elliot Han, Ian Whitick and Cian Donaldson, whilst Jonathan Fieldsend and Michael Pearce share the 8th row ahead of Adam Tyler, one to watch here definitely, and Ashley Heath, then Ivan Leary and Chris Malloy to round out the top 20. So that full grid of cars, 1 or 2 to watch for, as I suggested, out of position a little bit, and Adam Tyler definitely one of those. Ivan Leary had a spin in the first race, he's down in 19th position on the grid. Owen Mills from the back should be interesting as well, but the field are away in treacherously damp and greasy conditions here, but it is a bright morning, so the track should start to dry hopefully as we get through this race. And at the front of the field, it's Brandon Abraham, I think, that's got the lead there from the inside of row number 1. There's contact again for Bruce Robinson at the first corner. This time, though, he's the one dishing it out, and one car goes spinning off to the right-hand side. Oh, and it's Tom Jenkins. It's the number 56 car that has gone around, unfortunately, from 7th on the grid. Ollie Jenkins, the other Jenkins, managed to get through into the A race for this one, having finished in the top 5 in race 1B, but the prospects of Thomas Jenkins joining him now in the A group look a little bit slimmer after that spin at the start. Through the right-hander they go then. Halfway around the opening lap, Graham Rumsey, another driver that should move up the order. Just caught a glimpse of him. He's already got ahead of one driver. He started 11th. He's now 10th ahead of Luke Souch as the side-by-side battles begin now. First of all, for 4th position as they run down the back straight. Nick Ledoyen, that is, on the inside of Christian Han, the two that shared the 3rd row of the grid, 5th and 6th on the grid, respectively. And they're now 4th and 5th with Ledoyen ahead of Dam. Christian Dan has a bit of a slide. Those curbs are still a bit damp and greasy. You don't really want to be running on the painted surfaces. That certainly won't help your traction levels. But they drop down the hill then into the braking zone at Vale, and offline it's even more slippery than it is online. So that's only going to complicate matters when it comes to the side-by-side racing that we will expect to see still in this race, despite the slightly treacherous conditions. But as soon as you go offline, you find that it's especially slippery, and that possibly could cause a little bit of drama. Just saying, we've seen a few of these races before, so we know that things can get quite close sometimes. On board again with Bruce Robinson, he knows all about things getting a bit too close out there, doesn't he? He's been involved in a couple of bits of contact at that first corner. 21 goes through, that's Chris Malloy. Further up the road, we've got sideways, 2 sideways, and around goes the 97 car. Was that had a spin? Yes, it was number 97 that's gone around, and is pointing the wrong way. And that's Cian Donaldson then, who started 14th on the grid, but he's had a rotation up at Village. There's Bruce Robinson. Now, Bruce Robinson was one that I earmarked as one to watch before the start of the race. He started 8th on the grid, and he's still 8th, so he hasn't actually gained any ground. So that's interesting, especially since there are a couple of cars ahead of him now that were behind him on the grid. So, of course, lost a bit of ground, I'm sure, in that first corner contact with Tom Jenkins. But he has just gained 1 position, going up the inside of Christopher Gimm, who started behind him. He started 9th on the grid. He's now down to 8th in the race, with Robinson up into P7. And then Clive Chisnell, I think, is the next person that he'll try and overtake, who started 3rd, having been relegated from the A-grid earlier on this weekend. On board with Robinson there, we certainly picked the right car to put our onboard camera with, as he soars away at the wheel through the first part of the club corner, then through the second, and up to the end of another lap he goes, lap number 2 in the books then. BC Cars machine races across the start-finish line. Leaders getting away slightly at the front of the field, as you sort of expect, I guess, in these B races. We often have drivers at the front of the grid who are a little bit quicker than everybody else, but actually, because we had no non-finishes in our first A race, it's not like we've got a really, really quick driver that had a non-finish and then gets put to the front of the B grid. They are all pretty evenly matched across the field here. Graham Rumsey there, Luke Souch behind him in the grey and yellow car, trying to work his way back forward, was saying that he wasn't particularly confident about the wet conditions. I suppose it's not fully wet out there today, but he's keeping pace at the moment with a few of our regular top 10 runners, one of whom is Bruce Robinson, who's only a couple of positions ahead of him down the Hanger straight. You can see there the dry racing line. That's not the issue. The issue is as soon as you go off that racing line, and indeed the further you go from that racing line, the wetter it gets. Behind you can see Graham Rumsey and Luke Souch making a move up the inside of Christopher Ginn, and they both go ahead. So that's one place gained for each of them. I think Luke might have just given the bumper to Graham Rumsey there just to shove him through. Perfectly legitimate form of racing that you see quite a lot in Mazda MX-5 racing. Just that little helping hand in a straight line, and Luke only too happy to assist Graham on his way. But given the opportunity, I'm sure he'll be straight up the inside of Graham as well to try and continue this forward progress, and that could be his chance because Graham runs wide over the curb through the exit of the first part of Club Corner. Luke should therefore have a better exit onto the pit straight, and the yellow and grey 291 machine might be able to have a go into Abbey, but you can see how damp it is offline. You don't want to be going into that corner on that wet line, so single file definitely the way to go, I think, through that first corner for the time being. Fields End is catching this little group now as well, which has Bruce Robinson at the front of it, Graham Rumsey, Luke Souch and Christopher Ginn in the middle of it, and then Fields End catching, and Robinson runs wide, so Rumsey is up the inside, and this could give those behind a chance to further benefit from all of this as Robinson clobbers the curb and Luke Souch has to take avoiding action. Good reactions there to avoid contact with Robinson. He's up the inside of him now, but can't get through. That'll cost Luke a bit of speed off the turn. But actually, Christopher Ginn runs into the back of him rather than pulling alongside, so they stay as they were. With Rumsey having gained a position, I suppose, ahead of Robinson. Here comes the rest now, Fields End, and who's that coming up the inside with Fields End? That's another new car now joining in the fray. That's Bill Taylor, isn't it, from towards the back of the grid. 28th on the grid, Bill Taylor started, having started 4th and run at the front for much of the first B race before the contact he had that sent him down the order. Nick Ledoyen, meanwhile, scrapping away here with Charlie Rawls. This is towards the front of the field. It's not for the lead, it's for third position. Jack Lemmer and Brandon Abraham have pulled clear at the front of the field. This is for third place. Then Nick Ledoyen, I think, has just gone through ahead of Charlie. They just got a glimpse of the leaders going through. They're not particularly close together, but third place could not be much closer. And Nick Ledoyen heads through Abbey Corner once again with intense pressure being applied now, it's fair to say, by Charlie, who peeks to the outside line, but knew that that door was always going to be closed in his face, which it was, fairly, by Nick Ledoyen. Nick, an experienced MX-5 racer, been racing in the championship for several years. Charlie Rawls, someone we've seen appear in more recent times, but immediately has caught people's attention for being a very rapid driver. Given a few more years' experience, should be up there regularly on the A grid, which of course is the ambition for most of these drivers, really, to get themselves onto the A grid more regularly and then ultimately start winning A races and fighting for championships. Can be done. I've seen drivers progressing through the ranks in the MX-5 Championship in the past. Clive Chisnall, another veteran there, makes a move on the inside of Christian Dan. That's for significantly 5th position, so that was for the final transfer spot. And Christian Dan, who just missed out in race number 1 as well, he was 6th. He was the one on the outside looking in race 1, just missed out on a transfer spot, and now he's back outside of the top 5 again, so he'll try and make sure that that's not where he finishes. Doyen still in 3rd, and a little bit more securely so this time through as well. He's got all of 2 car lengths advantage over Charlie Rawls. It's side by side again for 5th position though. Christian Dan doing exactly what I thought he'd do, which is fight straight back on the inside of Clive Chisnall. But if they keep doing this, they risk delaying each other and bringing that next group of traffic onto their tail, albeit they are a few seconds behind at the moment. But running side by side is not the quickest way around this Silverstone International circuit. We pan back, thought for a moment we were going to pan back to chaos behind, but no, they're all still there, I think, more or less in the order they were last time we saw them. Over the curb there for Dan. Got to be careful if you start running too wide over those white lines. Not only do you find increasingly slippery surfaces to drive on, but you also run the risk of incurring the wrath of the clerk of the course. If you exceed the track limits once too often, you'll get warned, and then you get time penalties added on. We saw one time penalty in the previous race of 7 seconds for Bruce Robinson, but that wasn't actually for track limits, that was for another driving standards issue. So Chisnall then heads into Stowe Corner, still in 5th position, ahead of Christian Dan, despite Christian's best efforts to wrestle the place back away from him. All of the action really is happening in that fight for 7th, and this is Bruce Robinson's view of it. He's got Luke Souch behind him, and a couple of cars still in front of him. I think Graham Rumsey's the next car in front, but Luke Souch has had a really good exit there from Stowe Corner. Is there a gap on the inside? No, Bruce Robinson sees to that, so Luke goes to the outside, and that probably wasn't the best of moves, because diving up the inside goes Bill Taylor, and Bruce Robinson dives up the inside of Graham Rumsey. So that was, these are the two drivers that tangled, weren't they, in race number 1, and they traded a bit of paint again there. Now Luke Souch has lost his momentum. He's been roughed up a little bit, ran a bit wide through Vale and Club, and so he loses another place now to, was that Elliot Han going through? Yeah, number 14. And now Jonathan Fieldsend comes up to attack, and also the orange car of Owen Mills. Now Owen Mills started 33rd and last because he was our first retirement in the first B race, and unfortunately, having run right at the sharp end of that race, indeed he qualified 3rd, was running inside the top 5 at the time. He's now got some work to do. Fieldsend goes past Souch. It's all starting to unravel now, unfortunately for Luke. And he might be about to lose another one, you'd imagine, to Owen Mills, who's been quicker than most of these drivers so far this weekend, it's fair to say. There is Luke, the grey and yellow car, with Owen Mills now right behind him, and Jonathan Fieldsend spins in front of him and exits stage left. That was a really spectacular moment. And there have been quite a few close calls, haven't there, for Luke Souch, I've noticed so far this weekend. There was another car spinning across his bows, so he gains one and then promptly loses one, because back up the inside goes Owen Mills. There's Fieldsend, who, don't tell me he didn't hit the barriers. He was going off at such speed that you'd have thought it was almost certain he would have hit the tyre wall, but the car appears undamaged, and he will continue on his way. So he unfortunately takes himself well out of contention for a top 10 finishing position. This lot, though, are getting themselves closer and closer together, and more cars are joining this group. I'm both anticipating lots of close racing and also possibly a bit more chaos here before the end of the race, because this is building in intensity quite nicely. Owen Mills, the man on the move then, the orange and white number 22 car. Could he get into a transfer spot, I wonder? It's not beyond the realms of possibility, I suppose, depending on how quickly he gets through this group, I suppose, because he needs to get to the front of this queue and then bridge what is a fairly significant gap to the Clive Chisnall and Christian Dan battle. But it could be done. He's certainly got the speed to do it if he can make some very quick overtakes. On board with Bruce Robinson in front of us is Bill Taylor, who also is on a recovery drive. So too is Graham Rumsey, though, so they both sort of work their way through now to the front of the group. They are 7th and 8th respectively, these two. Number 45, Graham Rumsey, though, runs wide from 7th place, and that could be Bill Taylor's chance to get alongside, and indeed it is, but that will now punch an even bigger hole in the air for Bruce Robinson to get the slipstream. And indeed, Bruce Robinson pulls to the inside of Graham Rumsey and goes through, tries to go through, and then tries to do the same thing to Bill Taylor as well. Luke Souch has got himself in the middle of a 4-wide battle now in the background. Christopher Ginn on the outside. Elliot Han is the yellow car, and there's a black car coming up the inside. Was that Ashley Heath maybe coming through? We'll try and pick that up in a minute. One thing at a time. Bruce Robinson and Graham Rumsey, they go through with, Bill Taylor in front of them now. So Taylor's gone into 7th, Rumsey 8th, Robinson 9th. I think that Owen Mills is into 10th position now. But then what was going on behind him? Did they all survive that 4-wide run down the Hanger Straight? Yeah, I think they're all there. But it was that black car that made all of the progress, wasn't it? So that was, he says, waiting with bated breath. Get there in a minute. Michael Pearce, maybe, the number 70 car. It's just in front of Luke Souch anyway, who's got Elliot Han, Christopher Ginn right behind him. No, then Michael Pearce, isn't it? The orange and black car. Through they go anyway. And this very lively battle pack of cars does not show any real sign of calming down for the remainder of the race, does it? Onto the brakes they go. And lots of screeching of tyres as Elliot Han just about fends off Christopher Ginn. Oh, and there's Adam Tyler. He was another one we were watching from towards, well, he was mid-grid, I suppose, 17th, but that was certainly further down than he should have been. He's not made the sort of meteoric progress I thought he would, though. Bear in mind that he qualified 2nd on the race 1 grid and ended up, unfortunately, dropping down the order, didn't he? But he did qualify well, and I thought would be able to make better progress up the order, but he is now starting to make an impression on the top dozen or so. On board with Bruce Robinson then, he's now been overtaken by Owen Mills, and Owen is now trying to go around the outside of Graham Rumsey at Stowe Corner. It would be a shame not to see Owen Mills get transferred into an A-grid this weekend, wouldn't it, given the speed that he's had, but I'm not convinced he's going to be able to do that, unfortunately. Luke Souch, meanwhile, getting his elbows out, but he's gained a position now on this. It's the 99, isn't it? It's Ian Whitick, I think, that he's gone past. Yeah, number 99, there we go. That mystery black car, mystery solved, but it's lost a position now to Luke. And the next man now filling his mirrors is Elliot Hann. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other cars in that group, and here comes the next really quick one, which is Adam Tyler, one of the Masters drivers in this race. The leading Master, by the way, is Nick Ledoyen, who's running in 4th position at the moment. So he looks set to win the Masters element of this race, but still plenty of positions to change here, I think, in the final few laps. Into the about 2/3 of the way through the race now. And that's Tom Jenkins, is it not? Yeah, number 56. So Thomas Jenkins starting to regroup as well. He's just got himself ahead of Sam Jarvis as Luke Souch again having to drive really defensively there into Chapel. Has that compromised his exit onto the Hanger Straight? You'd have to imagine it probably has. We're on board now with Ashley Heath. He's even further down the order. And Ashley Heath trying to just get onto terms with that next group of cars, which he's sort of doing. He should get a bit of a slipstream down the Hanger Straight now. Oh, helped by the fact that one of those cars in front is on the grass. Not the first time we've seen that today at that corner. And he's actually going to be able to get through. I think he probably will. The door might be closed, but he's got enough momentum. Pulls alongside, and through he goes. So 1 place gain there for Ashley Heath. That'll put him towards the top 20. It's all changed again now, hasn't it? Because Souch has lost ground. Back through has gone Whitick, and he's brought Elliot Hann with him. So up 1, down 2 for Luke, and then here comes number 21 now, Chris Malloy as well out of nowhere. He's got himself ahead of Adam Tyler, and there are more and more of them joining him because of course Thomas Jenkins is coming through as well. So the leaders are missing out once again on all of the fun really. It's a pretty close gap at the front between Jack Lemmer and Brandon Abraham, but they're about 15 seconds clear of anybody else right now. Luke Souch comes over the hill with Christopher Ginn looking to the inside but also trying to defend from Chris Malloy. And then the next little trio come through with the number 11 car at the tail end of it. So that's Sam Jarvis from 32nd on the grid. Souch on the inside line through the tight right hand onto the back straight. He's defending well here, but I'm not sure where he lost those couple of positions. It must have been down the Hanger Straight, I guess. And really, it doesn't matter how well you can defend if you've got a queue of cars behind you and they've got the slipstream. There really is very little you can do to keep them behind you. He's doing his best to try and fend them both off again now. Malloy there, the dark car on the left-hand side of the road. Christopher Ginn, the white and yellow car on the outside. And Luke does successfully keep them both behind, aided by the fact they're driving into each other. They both run out wide. And Adam Tyler goes up the inside and brings with him Michael Pearce. And briefly, they were 4 abreast again there. Right, Nick Ledoyen had got back into 3rd place, but Charlie Rawls immediately does something about that, goes back up the inside into the first corner. That was a brave move on the damp side of the road, but Charlie Rawls has gone back ahead now. That was for 3rd position. But Nick Ledoyen still leading the Masters category for drivers over the age of 45, I seem to recall. Those a little bit more experienced in years, shall we say, who are still very rapid. And in the A races, we regularly see some of the Masters competitors running right at the front of the field. Jason Greatrex being one of them, for example. On board now with number 68. This is Ashley Heath, who is also one of the Masters drivers. And he's trying to sort of claw his way into the top 20 here, but I think he might just run out of time. He's making forward progress, though, is Ashley. That, I think, is Neil Dauncey that he's just gone past, so Ashley seeing quite a lot of action in the midfield. Now for 3rd position, this is all starting to tighten up a bit now, isn't it? Because Charlie Rawls and Nick Ledoyen have been delaying each other, and Clive Chisnall is catching them. The white and blue car, I think, is a back marker. Yes, it is. That's Robert Bond, number 75. So it's the silver and green car we're watching really. Clive Chisnall, who is definitely catching these two, but they are 3rd, 4th and 5th respectively. So for transfer spots, it makes little difference. The further up within the top 5 you finish in this race, the further up the grid you are for the A race later on. But you can only gain really a position or 2 on the grid. It makes, as I say, relatively little difference really to the outcome of that race. Not that will stop them fighting for the best position they can get in this race, of course. They are racing drivers after all. There is the 2nd place car, I think that was, Brandon Abraham. So there is a, no, that was a back marker, excuse me, that was Anthony Pettigrew, the 85 car. So we're just calming down a little bit now into the closing stages. Owen Mills, by the way, has got himself into 7th place, but I'm not sure he'll catch the top 6, unfortunately. Another few laps, he might have had a chance of getting into even the top 5, maybe, and getting into that A race. We are, though, going on to the final lap of the race. Jack Lemmer leads the way, the black and green car. The yellow machine of Brandon Abraham is in 2nd position. The number 12 car goes through past a couple of back markers, and Jack Lemmer should... I think I said Jack Brewer then, didn't I? Jack Lemmer I meant, is, I think, on his way to the race victory here. He had the start of this lap about a second in hand over Abraham behind him. And Jack Lemmer, the black and green number 28 machine, another very well turned out car, is looking like it's going to take a race victory here. Jack Lemmer, I'm pretty confident in saying, has not won a B race so far this year. In fact, I'm not convinced we've seen him on the podium yet. So this would be a good achievement for Jack, who, as I said, struggled in that first A race, but he was 30th in the first A race, and the top 29 stayed in the A race. It was 30th on backwards that got relegated, so he was only one position out of the relegation zone. It makes sense, therefore, that he will win this race. Brandon Abraham was 31st, so these were the top 2 on the grid for this race. They were the first 2 to be relegated, and actually, Abraham's really caught him here in the first half of the lap. He's got one chance maybe to send it up the inside, but I don't think he'll want to risk a collision here that could put them both out of the race. And as they come through the final couple of corners, Jack Lemmer looks as though he's going to do it and take the race victory here in race 2B on the Silverstone International circuit. A well-judged drive, started on pole, broke away at the start of the race, and comes home to take the race victory by, in the end, 6.5 tenths over Brandon Abraham in 2nd position. Then there's a little bit of a wait for anybody else to appear. It's going to be well over 16 or 17 seconds, I think. A couple of back markers there cruising to the flag, and Charlie Rawls there comes through in 3rd position, just ahead of Nick Ledoyen. Only just, though, that was less than a quarter of a second between the two of them, but it's Rawls that gets on the podium. So Lemmer, Abraham, Rawls, Ledoyen and Clive Chisnell are promoted to the A grid for the final race of the season. Then Christian Dan, Owen Mills, Bill Taylor, Graham Rumsey and Bruce Robinson round out the top 10. Thomas Jenkins was 11th, Luke Souch ended up 12th in the end, with Elliot Han, Michael Pearce and Adam Tyler rounding out the top 15. Chris Malloy was 16th, Christopher Ginn 17th, they dropped back towards the end. Then Sam Jarvis, Jake Stiles and Toby Owen to round out the top 20, all of our 33 starters incidentally got to the end, with Brandon Abraham setting the fastest lap in his pursuit of Jack Lemmer towards the end.
Congratulations on the race 2B win. Interesting conditions out there this morning.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Started off damp in that race, and then a dry line came present, and yeah, there was a lot more grip towards the end of the race, but definitely at the start it was a bit hairy.
Was it a tough choice on what setup to take at the beginning?
We just softened the car up a little bit. Luckily I had some damp running yesterday in testing, and it was very similar conditions to the morning of yesterday, so I'm not too sure how many people had that experience yesterday, but it was definitely an advantage for me, and yeah, luckily pulled away and kept the win. Yeah,
as you say, good win, good race out there. Looking forward to this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this afternoon in the A race. The quicker boys are in that, so I better bring my A game.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll look forward to seeing you out there.
Cheers, thank you.
Brandon, congratulations on 2nd place. Interesting conditions out there on the circuit. Looked a little bit damp from the outside. How was it like from a driver's perspective?
Conditions were really slippery, so at the start we thought it was going to be dry. So I mean, there was a few dry lines on the track, so we could adapt to it. But yeah, a few corners you end up missing because of the wet line. So yeah, it was really tricky conditions out there. But yeah,
really don't usually expect to see you in the B races. Interesting conditions out there, and you've come away with a 3rd place.
Yeah, I mean, I've never driven the international circuit before, and we didn't do any testing, and my PlayStation's in the cupboard. So we went out yesterday and really didn't know the lefts from rights. So when we qualified 16th in group, I was pretty happy where I was. Would have liked to have been a bit higher, but considering we had never been here before, I was quite happy. When race 1A happened, I was a bit disappointed to go backwards, ended up battling towards the back, just couldn't get out of the bottom 5 really. So that's the way it goes every now and then. Still good fun to be out racing a Mazda, so I'm happy. Yeah.
And what PlayStation is it that you're using? You 4?
Yeah, we're on the PlayStation 4. We're just using Project Cars, but as and when. We just moved house, so the missus has chucked it in the cupboard for a couple of weeks until I find somewhere I can set it up.
Well, it certainly hasn't done you any harm this weekend, and we look forward to seeing you out there in the final race.
Thank you very much.